discussion points. As I told you, one will be resume. In resume, we'll be taking a look at, we'll talk about the basic overview, what we shall do, how we shall approach it, and then followed by the structure of the resume, how the resume is distributed in two aspects, two different bits, what one should do to target different kind of companies in those different structures, and post that we'll be talking about the point framing examples. I'll be picking a few examples and I'll be showcasing how one has to formulate their points for resume, followed by some of the do's and don'ts, which I'll give you a gist about, and then we'll talk further about it. Followed by the second entity, which is your off-campus job market. So I'll be briefly touching upon LinkedIn, job portals, and referral network. How you can leverage these three different verticals to get yourself an off-campus job. So let's get started. So as we have discussed earlier, right, that in the previous sessions, that resume is the most critical part of your application, right? The most amount of filtering which takes place is at the very beginning. And that happens when you apply for any company on your campus or off the campus. Whenever one applies a typical job, generally within our campus gets some 600 to 700 odd applications, and these companies come for roughly around say 2 to 4 positions, 5 positions max. So the kind of shortlist which company eventually lets out is very small as compared to the total pool which is available over there, which implies that the hardest part to crack in any job interview is to ensure that you get one interview, right? So getting a job interview or landing a job interview in itself is a big task from going by the numbers, because the number of applications will be massive across campuses. Couple that with the fact that this year probably we all will see digital or online kind of interviews taking place, which will ensure that a company doesn't need to physically be present at your campus. And in many cases, many of you students would not be even at your campuses and would be taking these interviews from your home or from other places. Now, when in such a scenario, what happens is whenever a company is not physically coming to your campus, what they can do is they can run multiple rounds of interviews for different candidates from different colleges in parallel, because it's all happening digitally, which means that your resume has to be very good in terms of how you prepare it, not just within your campus, but at an absolute level, it should stand out, because otherwise there are so many applications which companies are receiving and they are in no hurry. They can take their time, they can interview, and they can finally shortlist the best among the best. So that kind of puts in place that how critical it is to ensure that your resume has to be well tuned and ready. So just to give you some idea about it, right? So I have been involved in the placement process of IIM Calcutta, where I was one of the placement representatives. And apart from that, I have visited several campuses to conduct interviews, to shortlist candidates. And typically, on an average, if a HR executive has to shortlist a resume, they typically spend less than 30 seconds on anyone's resume. So one piece of paper, 30 seconds, it's just like glimpse of your resume, which the HR takes a look at, and either you're shortlisted or you're not. So what can one do to ensure that within those 30 seconds, that impression, that mark can be left on the person who is shortlisted, right? So just to give you a very brief idea, and I'm pretty sure many of you would already be doing some or all of this, and those who are not will find this approach useful, right? So it's a very good idea to start with, say, a 4 page master CV, master resume, right? Try to think of all different buckets, all different things which you have done in your college life, which you have done during your school time, no matter how small, no matter how irrelevant you feel that point is, but always ensure that you write all of those points and you kind of capture it in your master CV. Making a master CV is a 100% must do. and it should be very exhaustive. Your master CV should not leave out any point, no matter how frivolous you think that point is or how irrelevant you think that point is, because who knows, right? So you have to ensure that your master CV is extremely exhaustive, and you are structuring it in a way so that you can further use it to compress it or to kind of hand pick certain points for your one page CV. That's how the process should go. You should never start with your one page in your hand and kind of start jotting down points that, okay, I'll put this, I'll put that, maybe this industry would require this project, that industry would require that internship. That's not how it should be done, right? Secondly, if we have to talk about application to different companies, right? So to ensure that you are shortlisted or to ensure that you at least get a fair chance among the pool of candidates, you have to kind of differentiate, you have to kind of make several versions of your CV, not several, maybe like two or three different versions of your CV, which kind of would have different mix of points. And that is something we'll take a look at in the next section, that how can you differentiate your CV in terms of point structuring, right? Secondly, over here, what happens is, I'll take some example and try to explain this to you, right? So let's take finance, right? Finance as a sector is very selective, very picky, and number of openings over there are very, very small. Very, very less number of openings are there in general, right? So suppose you apply to a finance company and you are like the stud of your campus. You have done like you have done taken like 3, 4 PORs, positions of responsibility, and you are like killing it in sports. You're doing very good, right? And what happens is, in your CV, what you end up doing is that you have some points for your academic information, some points on your internship, some point on your projects, and then a whole lot of points are over there which talks about how you have done in your sports, how you have kind of leveraged your PORs to learn leadership skills, and all of that is very, very important. But you have to understand from the point of view of finance firms, HR, that they are looking for very specific details in your CV, right? So the more you talk about PORs, the more you talk about extracurriculars, it means that you're giving lesser weightage and lesser space to the points which actually kind of matter in the initial filtering, right? So one has to be aware of such information. One has to take cognizant, one has to take steps to ensure that you make CV which are very fine tuned, very tailor made to different industries, different segments, different companies, right? Right. So moving ahead. So as I was telling you that you have to basis your different industries in which you are applying for, you have to kind of balance your CV accordingly. So what I mean by that is, your CV has two parts, right? One is your top half, second is your bottom half, right? And top half generally kind of contains. So I am assuming that most of the viewers of this video are people who are in undergrad, doing their undergrad. If they are postgrad students, then there will be another section which will be basically your work experience. And again, that will come over here, right? And I'm talking specially about UG. I'll take the PG case again in a minute. So talking about UG candidates, right? You have to ensure that these three sections which are there should be highlighted if in case of, say, finance company. So that is the point I was trying to speak. If you are applying for a consulting firm, right? A consulting firm basically looks for a very balanced CV with some number of spikes, right? In order to crack, it's advisable to have a very balanced CV which kind of shows that more or less you are doing good across all the domains or all the pointers, all the headers, and under all the headers, right? So, in terms of how your top half should look, it actually begins with your academic qualification, and no matter how your CGPA is, I've seen many people actually don't put their CGPAs in the resume. So while it looks like a good idea that okay, my CG is a bit low, I'll do is I'll not put it. So at least I'm not sharing that information with the HR or with the hiring manager. Now what happens is when you choose not to put your CGPA into your resume, that implies that the person who's reviewing your CV would basically assume the worst, right? If I see someone's CV without a CGPA, I'll assume that okay, maybe he's a 4 pointer, 5 pointer on a scale of 10, right? So I'll assume the worst because he's not sharing means it's somewhere near that. Now what happens is I've seen that some of my friends who like had a 7 pointer on a scale of 10, they chose not to put their CGPAs into it because you know what, in their 10th and 12th they were like 95% plus, and now in their undergrad they are like 7.2, 7.3 on a scale of 10. And they thought I'll do what, I'll take it out because it gives a very bad impression that from 95 plus I've come to 7.2, 7.3. Now on the outside it looks like a very well thought idea. It's not actually, because if I look at that CV right now for a candidate who is interviewing or who has applied for a role, I'll definitely assume the worst, that okay, probably in his 10th and 12th he would have been like some 70s. In his undergrad he would have gotten like 5 pointer, 4 pointer, late 4 pointers, something like that. So it's a good idea to put your CGPA into resume if it's not that less. I mean, if it's that less, then okay, you can choose to skip. It's up to you, right? And in terms of, so what I have seen in multiple resumes which I have reviewed over the years, what I have seen is people generally do not use a very tabular kind of a structure. So the structure which I have shown over here, as you can see in the left hand side, you can see that I within each sector I have defined some small buckets, right, wherein you can share your points. I have seen alternatively what people do is instead of putting tables like that, they just use another line for defining those small buckets. So what I mean by that is, say under your internship and research projects, right, where I've written internship one, maybe you don't put it like that and you put it in a line fashion below that. Now it sounds like a good idea, and what it helps is it actually kind of increases your length of the line which you can put over there, right, which is a good thing. But it comes at a cost. What is the cost? For every such bucket, you eventually end up losing one line from your resume, right? So if you make this tabular kind of a resume, then generally you would be able to put 44 to 46, or say 43 to 45 points, right? If you choose to define all these small buckets into a line item, then that would decrease the number of pointers in your resume, which is again a bad thing, right? Because if you are giving lesser points to the hiring manager, then they would know less about you, and then they might not be able to surely say that hey, look, this guy is really outstanding, let's give him a shot. So it's always good to put decent number of points, and those points should be good in itself. I mean, you should not put extra points just for the sake of it. I mean, if you're putting 38 good points compared to 42 okay point, I'll say go with the 38 good points, right? So, right. So now what happens is within this third bucket, which is your internship and research projects, what people do, they try to break this further into internships different and research projects different. And again, that is something which is totally up to you. And one should do that if they think they have enough material to, kind of cover those points up. If you think that they can be clubbed together, because if you are going to put it separately, you are going to consume one more line space, and again that is going to reduce 1 point from your CV, right? So as you can see that I have clubbed internship and research projects. In terms of how these points, how different points should come or feature in these tables, right? Generally, generally what people do, or generally what is preferred, is you put 10 to 12 points in your academic bucket, academic and co-curricular achievements bucket, and roughly about the same in your uh, internship bucket, right? So what happens is what happens is that when you structure it like that, your CV comes out as pretty balanced, and people generally appreciate that. And talking about the finance roles, so it's a very popular saying that finance companies generally look at the top half and then they kind of don't look at the bottom half, right? And this is something which was very prevalent in my times during and Calcutta times, right? And people used to say that you just need to send the first half to a finance firm because they generally don't go below that, right? So I mean, these are the, I mean, it doesn't mean that they don't look at your PORs and ECA at all. What I'm trying to say is that they give a high weightage to this particular segment. So that is something which you should take into your cognizance, and you should apply, and you should make your CV accordingly. Moving ahead, right? So this is the bottom half of your CV, and generally, I mean, it consists of your positions of responsibility and extracurricular activities. Now, what happens? This is especially for the this especially for the UG students. What happens is, at times, maybe some of you folks have not gotten that many PORs or that many ECAs, or there's some space left in your resume, like some 2, 3 lines, 2, 3, 4 lines in your resume. So what I have seen people doing is they put some sort of buckets for technical skills where they mention what kind of programming languages they can use, what kind of different platforms they can use, what are the relevant courses they have done. Now, relevant courses might help from case to case if you have not done a project for that, right? So if you're applying for a particular sector which requires some sort of, you feel that looking at the job description, there should be some mention of, say, marketing courses, which generally some of the UG students do from the PG electives, right? If you have done those courses and you feel that they might help you, then maybe, yeah, you can put it over here. Generally, I mean, from my understanding or from what I have seen, I generally do not make a make or break kind of a decision from the technical skills itself, right? I mean, technical skills by itself is nothing. Like, it's not adding any major value, right? Till the time the job says that you have to be like 3 levels of this course, and you have done all 3 levels of that course, and then you have put it over here, right? So generally that never happens, and hence I do not think that it's a good idea to put technical skills bucket. But if you feel that your resume has some space, then definitely you should put it over here, right? In terms of point distribution, right? In terms of point distribution, you can put, so basically in your bottom half, you have to ensure whatever is your strongest of the lot, you should highlight it, right? And when I say strongest of the lot, I mean between POR and ECA, right? So say you are Tech Fest coordinator, right, in your college, and you have handled a lot of responsibility, you have done quite a lot of stuff over there, then you should definitely put 4 to 5 points just for that in the POR one, right? So this section is basically to ensure, to kind of showcase that you are able to manage teams, you are able to work in teams, you are able to lead juniors to kind of deliver a fest of size this, that, these many footfalls, those kind of information, those kind of details. And it generally it generally is quite a differentiator in terms of between people who have strong such pointers versus who don't. So it's a good thing to put it like that, right? And just for the last, just on the last page, one more thing which I wanted to mention, and this is basically for the PG PG students who are over here taking a look at this seminar. What happens is you have your work experience as well for those who have work experience, right? And if you have significant amount of work experience under your belt, and you feel that your work experience is quite relevant and quite helpful for that particular role, or maybe not, if not, and you feel that your undergrad CG is quite low and you don't want to highlight that, then what people generally can do is they can put their work experience bucket on the top, followed by academic distinction and co-curricular achievements, and maybe slide down their table at number 3, right? And for them, maybe internship and relevant projects wouldn't make more much sense because they have to kind of free up their space from their resume, and they can definitely get some pointers from here, right? Hmm. Right. So so we are talking about this in terms of point distribution. So I have mentioned like generally 8 to 10 pointers in PORs, 10 to 12 in ECA, or maybe you can put 10 to 12 in PORs and 8 to 10 in ECA, right? What happens over here is that when you put your ECA, extracurricular activities, right? Generally, what I have seen is people are good at some sport, let's say basketball, right? And they have won multiple medals during the 4 years or 5 years of their engineering or their undergrad courses. And what I've seen is they kind of write 4 points on that particular sport, that they have won this, they have done that, they have done this and that, they were captain, they have led their teams over there, which is kind of great, right? But I'm pretty sure that you can kind of club that into 1 or 2 points. If you have, say, gone for state level for that particular sport, or at national level, then maybe 1 point you can put, and then second point you can say that you led your college institute team to this and this fest and you won over there. You have won, say, 10 gold, 9 silver in your 4 years of different competitions you have participated in, right? But if you choose to start like you have gone for nationals, then second you have won championship one, you have won championship two, and so on and so forth. So this kind of gets very repetitive. And overall, what you should focus towards is you should always try to put points which kind of give extra flavor about your personality, about what you have done, about how you are suitable for that particular job, instead of just putting one thing and kind of proving it again and again. So if I see a CV where the candidate has mentioned that he or she has gone to national levels for some particular sport or has done something at a national level, then it is pretty much clear in my head that okay, you are really good at it, like really, really good at it, right? And I would not seek for more validation like, oh, okay, you did not mention about your college festivals gold or silver. I know that you're pretty good, and if not you, then whoever else would have won would have been better than you, and he or she would have been done really great, right? So I get the flavor talking about this particular CV who mentions just one single point saying that I have done this, and maybe one another point saying that these many medals I have won over so many years and so many places. That kind of pretty much sums it up. So instead of in ECA, what I've seen is people generally put 8 to 9 to 10 points and they just write about two extracurricular activities, right? And they bucket one is sport and one is some fun activity, and they kind of say that okay, these are the two buckets. I have done this, that, and that kind of gets very, very repetitive. So that is something which you should avoid. Adding to this, what I have seen and what generally people do is they add a lot of achievements from their school days, and which is a good thing to do. But you should understand that the kind of relevance or the kind of importance which is given to this particular section is very, very exponentially decreasing in nature. So someone who has won a 100-meter race in their class third would be more or less not that impactful as compared to someone who has done that in their college in second year, right? So that is another thing which you should mention or which you should be aware of. Also in terms of structuring the points, what I have seen across so many CVs I've gone through is that people kind of people mention what they have done, right? Or what happened, instead of writing how that appeared from the outside. So while writing these points, you have to take a look at these points from a very third person perspective. And that third person perspective is very, very critical, very, very important to have. Because what happens is you write that point knowing that you did that or you accomplished that. And what happens is the person who is reading about that, he doesn't know you, he doesn't understand what you have done. He has no idea about your existence. right? So you should structure your point in a way so that if a third person reads about that point, he or she is able to make sense out of it in a very independent context, right? And this is something which I suggest to all the people whose CV I review, is that always, whenever you are done with your CV, always take a break, and after some hours, go back to your CV and read your CV as if you're reading the CV of someone entirely unknown to you, right? Read it not from the context, or not from taking the context from your memory, right? So what happens is, just to go back, what happens, I'll tell you, right? In internships and research projects, right? Most of the undergrad students who are across different branches, say, I have done my majors in mathematics and scientific computing. I have done a lot of projects in stochastic mathematics, probability, this, that, very mathematical kind of things I have done in life, right? During the 5 years of college, right? Now, if I have to write my internship experience, or I have to write my research projects, they can be as technical as possible, with so many terms and places which are very, very unknown or alien to the people who are not in that particular domain, right? So it's very important that you ensure that a third person who is reading your CV is able to make some sense out of it, right? If you're writing that I have worked on alpha technique of this and I have done beta technique of that, right? Now think it from the perspective of someone who has no idea about your field. How can he or she relate with what you have done? And from that sense, your CV is more or less doesn't add any value, right? Whenever you're writing anything about yourself, if I'm unable to comprehend what you are trying to communicate, that only tells me one thing, and that one thing is you're bad at communication, right? And that's a negative thing, which means I'm not going to shortlist your CV. So you have to ensure that whoever is reading your CV is able to make some sense out of it. And everybody does very, very technical, very, very niche kind of things. You have to ensure that whenever the other person is reading your resume, he or she should be able to understand at least 70 to 80% of the points, right? You can think of it like this, that if I give my resume to a 12 years old kid, and if I ask him or her to make sense of it, then he should be able to tell mota mota that, yeah, this makes sense. Over here you have done this, over here you have done that, and you have used this, you have used that, you have impacted this, you have done that, right? So that is the kind of communication your CV should be doing. Your CV is nothing but a mode of communication, between a mode of kind of hidden communication between you and the HR or the hiring manager. So you should be very, very kind of focused on the point that your CV points are very, very generic, in the sense that people should be able to make sense out of it, right? Moving on, another thing which generally people kind of miss out on is to capture the amount, or is to capture the metric behind whatever things are working on. So, say for example, I applied for some JPMC workshop, uh, which kind of conducts for select students, and they accept invitations across colleges in India. One can apply over there and kind of wait for the selection. Suppose I get selected for that, right? Now there are so many ways in which I can put it in my CV, right? So if I'm choosing to put that in my CV, there are so n number of ways in which I can do that. I can simply write that I attended JPMC workshop, which was on trading and whatever, right? I'll structure it in some way. Another way can be that selected for JPMC workshop, which was in trading and dealt with. It was a 2 day workshop, whatever details you want to share, right? But when you try to think of it from a third person perspective, right? That, okay, somebody, I don't even know the I don't even know the person whose CV I'm reading, right? So for me, it's like someone went for a workshop conducted by JPMC. Okay, that's it, right? I do not get a flavor of how intense the competition was. I do not get a flavor of how reputed that conversion is. I do not get a sense of how elite or how non-elite it is, right? Is it something which anybody can get in? Is it something which, 10,000 folks across different campuses in India aim for, and then only a select few can able to kind of convert it? So I'm not sure about what is the kind of magnitude which is there in that place, right? And in that case, what happens is you kind of do not use your strong points as your good communicating points, right? This is something which should be a very good communicating point for the hiring manager. You should talk about that, look, 9,833 students applied to this, and you were one out of 40 people who were selected for this, and you got a certificate wherein you won some internal competition they conducted. So, whatever. I mean, your CV should kind of share some sort of metric, some sort of numbers, some sort of impact of what you have done, right? In almost all the CVs of undergrad students which I have gone through, right, they mostly talk about what they have done and they stop there. So if some of you guys are watching this webinar, so this is like a common feedback to all of you. It doesn't matter what you have done. What matters is whatever you have done, how has it helped in the bigger picture? You should always be able to capture that bigger picture and the impact you have brought there. Maybe in terms of revenue, maybe in terms of profit, maybe in terms of some time reduction, some kind of optimization, some operational optimization, right? So you should always try to think of it from a very big picture perspective. You should not think, okay, you know what, I did one, I did two, I did three, I did four. I did four of these tasks and this is it. These are my 4 pointers for my internship one. This is not how it should be. It should be about what was the problem you were trying to solve. Why did you do those four tasks in first place? You would have been aiming to, do a cost reduction or do a throughput increase or do some sort of optimization, time optimization, whatever was that agenda behind which, because of which you did this. And once that is clear, then maybe elaborate about the kind of changes you have gotten into the system because of which you were able to achieve it, or how much was the change in the percentage as compared to previous techniques. So it should be very metric driven. Try to think of all of your points from a very metric sense. And sometimes it doesn't make sense, right? I'm saying that try to think of this and not saying that ensure it is always achieved, because there will be some points which would be very hard to kind of put under a metric. But always try to think of how can you ensure that your points are metric driven. They are kind of sharing, they are kind of communicating very well with the person who has no idea about your existence or the kind of work you do, right? So that is something which is very, very important. Most of these students kind of feel or lose track of how crucial, how important it is to not think from their own perspective, but kind of take a step back and look at the overall picture. Try to think of the same problem from someone's assessment who doesn't have any idea about your work stream, who doesn't have any idea about the kind of industry you are in, right? Try to communicate with that person. And if you are able to communicate with that person, I can assure you, if even 5% relevance is there for any job you apply to, you are going to get the shortlist, right? Because this is something which almost all the other kids out there do wrong, right? They kind of lack this metric driven and kind of third person perspective thing, right? So moving on. Yeah, so just to summarize this structure bit, what I want to convey over here is that you have to always ensure that more or less you're covering pointers across different buckets. You're keeping your CV balanced in terms of different industries, whichever you are targeting. You have to ensure that your CV kind of illustrates whatever they are asking in their job description. And if you're able to do that, then that will leave a very good impact on the overall curriculum, on the overall CV, and it will definitely increase your chance of getting shortlisted, right? Moving on, right? How to frame individual points. Now, this is a sector, or this is a vertical where there are so many different points I want to make. So what I have done is I have taken two examples, and I'll try to show that how by tweaking even a little bit of your points, you can change your points significantly, right? So say this is a student who has worked in one of the technical festivals of the only technical festival of IIT Kanpur, which is Techriti, right? And they have handled the food stalls which are organized there, which are organized for the 4 days of the festival, right? And the description, whatever I have mentioned to you, is exactly what this guy has written. And he has written because this is exactly what he did. He has handled the complete end-to-end food stall arrangements and for the 4 days of that festival. Now, when I read this, I kind of try to think it from a very third person perspective, right? Try to think of it that, okay, from end to end, he has managed some food stall vendors. Okay, okay, moving on, right? So the amount of impact it makes on the reader is almost none, or is very, very minimal. The only kind of information I know is this person is good at arranging things, maybe food stalls. That's it. I do not get any idea about what he specifically did, what kind of value he brought. I have no idea about it. And from the perspective of the student who has written this, he or she thinks that he has written end to end food stall arrangement. That means everything. That indeed means everything, but it's not showcasing or it's not capturing any value which he or she has driven, right? So compare that with the uh, restructured point on the right that booked INR 2.7 lakhs revenue, 67% YOY growth, onboarded 13 F&B vendors and Techriti, annual technical fest, IITK 20, right? So over here you can see that it talks about two different things. Firstly, how much revenue the person was able to bring, right? Secondly, how many number of vendors he was able to onboard, right? So this kind of showcases that these are the two metric on which this person has delivered, right? A lot would have gone in negotiating the price so that overall composition is 2.7 lakhs and all of that. But that is something which you can take it up in interview. If the interviewer asks you about that, what exactly you did, how you achieved it, or how were you able to get a growth of 67% year on year, right? So you have provided the interviewer with all the details in a very metric driven fashion. Even the interviewer might think that, okay, this guy is from IIT Kanpur and he was able to increase something by 67%. And this is not the kind of incremental increase one generally sees, right? So this he or she would have done something completely out of the box. So the interviewer will ask you that, okay, tell me what you have done, or how did you manage to kind of get this much amount of growth, right? And this is your opportunity in the interview to ensure to kind of share what you have done, what new things you have done, and it's kind of talking about your strength, right? So you design, you put your points in a way, in a manner so that people are able to relate with it. People find, or people tend to ask questions which are about your strengths only, right? How were you able to achieve the 67% of massive growth annually, right? And then you can maybe talk about what are the different things you did, how you did it, what were the different challenges you felt, how you tackled those challenges, right? Even without the interviewer asking, you can share about your strengths in so many different ways with examples, and this is definitely one of those. Moving on, uh, so this second example which I have taken, this is pretty technical in nature, so what I'll do is I'll give you the context. Right. So the context is that the client for whom the person was working, he was supposed to kind of identify new opportunities after the outbreak of COVID-19. And what happened was there was a substantial halt in districts which were red and orange as compared to green districts, right? So the context was to identify opportunities wherein revival of projects will take or will pick up quickly. So this person has conducted some online research to find district distribution with daily updates. He used to update that thing daily and clubbed that with the industrial impact to identify 5,000 crore projects, right? When I read it, I mean, in the beginning itself, I might not read it till the end. So the main term, which is your impact of 5,000 crore, that should be brought in front, right? In the first on the LHS you can see the statement which is there definitely captures the impact which is of 5,000 crore worth of projects, but that is towards the right hand side. You should always try to bring your impact on the left hand side of your table because that's where person generally starts looking at, right? So you find, I mean, when you fine tune this point, it becomes identified INR 5K crore infra project opportunities across tier 2 3 districts by developing real time COVID 19 framework. This exactly tells you whatever the person has covered in the first point. But the first point, you need to have a lot of context, you need to know what industrial impact, what industries, whatever. But on the in the second point, after reading this, you can think that okay, he or she has identified some opportunities in tier 2 3 districts. You might be interested to talk about it. You might even ask the candidate, okay, tell me what you have done specifically over here. How did you target tier 2 3 districts? Tell me a little bit more about the project. So the point on the right hand side is kind of a point which increases or which raises the curiosity of the interviewer. He or she would like to ask you about your experience further, and this will be your opportunity to ensure that you communicate your point, your impact, your strengths very well, right? So it's very critical how you frame individual points. For the paucity of time, I have taken only two examples, right? And just to move ahead, right. So there are a lot many other things which I can talk about, and I am taking an online course on the PrepLeaf portal, and you can definitely take a look at it on the courses section over there, and then maybe you can enroll yourself over here, and we can take it further, right? And it's already 6:45. What I'll do is I'll try to wrap this up in another 5 minutes, and then maybe we can take your questions in the next 10 minutes, right? So moving on to the second bit, that how to approach firms off campus, right? And this is something which not many people used to do till now, but many people might be forced to look out for from their campuses because job market right now is pretty bad. Right. So I've taken three different verticals. One is your LinkedIn. Most of you, or I guess almost all of you, would be present over there. It's very important that you kind of you are present over there. You kind of ensure that your visibility is there, and it kind of helps you track that what are the companies who are hiring, what kind of roles are there. It helps you with the job search part, right? And whenever, I mean, just my 2 cents, whenever you apply for a job or whatever are your aspirational companies for people, for folks who are in their first or second year, try to see who are the alums who are working there, try to connect with them, try to talk to them, and try to understand from them that how things are over there, what kind of projects they work on. Try to build a relationship, try to build a network over there. And it takes a lot of time. I mean, you cannot build a good LinkedIn network in 2 days, 5 days, 7 days. It takes years and years to keep investing over there, to kind of make your presence felt, to kind of get connected with the right folks, to to be able to leverage anything out of LinkedIn, right? And over LinkedIn, I get so many messages from different aspirants, different folks, some of my juniors from my alma mater, right? So generally, what I have seen is most of the people just send a request, and after that, they start with "Hi, how are you doing?" or things like that, right? So if you are talking to someone, who is not your friend, who is not your acquaintance, who doesn't know you on your name by name basis, right? It's always good to kind of introduce yourself in a small message, in a small introductory message, wherein you can share about why you have connected with that person, how can you add value to them, or how can they add value to you. You should be very clear about it. Suppose you wanted to paying your alum for some particular referral, right? So it's very important that you give a brief overview of your profile, you talk to them about what you have done, you tell them that this is the job which I saw on the job portal, which is there in your company, and I would like to apply for the same. I've I get so many requests saying that, okay, you know what, I want to work in your firm. Please refer me for some job. Please refer me for some job. I mean, seriously, do you think that the other person would take the pain of going through your profile and then going through what you have done, what you have not done, then going through the company portal to find a job for you and then refer you for the same? They are not going to do that, right? So you have to be very, very proactive in that sense. You have to kind of ensure that you are doing your research first, then you are kind of being very specific in the ask. Even asking for a referral from someone who doesn't know you is pretty straightforward, and people generally, it depends. I mean, some people do refer, some people don't. So you have to kind of establish a rapport with them. You have to showcase that you would be a good fit for the company. You can maybe share your cover letter with them. You can maybe work on your resume. You can share your resume with them, right? Just to give them a brief. And it should definitely have your introductory message part. Nobody has the time to download your resume and take a look at it and then come back to you saying that, okay, you will be very fit for our firm. Why don't you apply? Right? So that is something which you have to take care of. Apart from these two links, there are different job portals where you can look for jobs and generate leads over there. And overall, uh, there is definitely a paucity of time right now. So overall, the off-campus market requires a lot of research at the candidates and a lot of network building at the candidates and that takes a longer period of time as compared to campus placements, which kind of happen over a few months in a very structured manner, right? So these are the things I wanted to cover in this session. What I'll do is I'll quickly take some of the questions which I have received from you guys till now. Additionally, I mean, you can go and check on the PrepLeaf portal, wherein there are different courses, there are different combos which you can opt for and kind of leverage those combos to ensure that your learning enhances for the placements which are coming, right? Right. To begin with, what if we don't have much to write in our resume with respect to the job we are applying for? Okay. So that's a very valid question, right? And that happens for a lot of UG candidates who are there. So it's perfectly fine. I mean, if there's nothing relevant you can write, you can definitely write things which can kind of showcase your skills, your strengths, and kind of tell the or communicate with the hiring manager that you have these skills, you are well trained with these aspects, right? So try to bring out your strengths in a very metric driven fashion so that even if your profile isn't very relevant, you are able to showcase that you have learned so much via different experiences in your past and you can definitely pick it up. Moving on, should we mention industrial and research internships in two separate buckets or club them both under internships? Right. So this is exactly something which I mentioned in the webinar as well, right? That it depends. It depends on the kind of industrial internship you have had. It depends on the kind of research internship you have had. If you think like you have interned with top banks out there, and you have done your research internship via some good scholarships like MyTax, etc., then maybe it would make sense for you to differentiate those buckets and put two strong internship and projects under those. But if you think that more or less, if you put it together, it makes sense. I mean, they are more or less say good, okay kind of experiences. Maybe you can put them together and kind of intensify or make that whole bucket quite strong, right? And as I've told you, it depends from person to person. Also, it depends from how many points you have. If you are going to separate these buckets, then you are going to cost you will get that extra additional one line cost, right? So if you don't have one extra point, maybe you can put it separately. It depends from cases to cases, right? Moving on. Also, for the previous question, instead of mentioning it under internships, you should mention internships and research projects so that it kind of captures the point that you have clubbed both the sectors together. Next point: how do we get 8 to 10 points in ECA if should mention only a couple of points for each EC? Very good question. Very good question. So, look, how you can it is that generally it's beneficial that you write 6 to 8 EC points, and when 8 EC points, then that would mean four different such activities, right? So once you have a lot many points under your belt, right, you can structure them across different buckets and you can put 2 points each. Suppose you don't have that many points, for example, then try to put 2 points across three activities, try to put six ECA points, and maybe increase points in your internship, maybe increase points in your academic section, maybe increase another point in your POR. In your POR, I would recommend that you write and you define kind of the work you have done, right? And especially for people who are core team members or who are the who are in the top tier body of campuses, right? For them, it's very good to elaborate their PORs and go light on their ECA, or at least go balanced in terms of both, to ensure that points are there. And when I say that write lesser amount of points in your EC, I explained it with a context, right? Your points should be more or less recent in terms of when you achieve those points. Additionally, your points should not be redundant in nature, right? So for example, if someone is really good in say basketball, right, and they have represented they have represented or they have participated in the in the nationals, then if they are going to write five more points about it, then it doesn't make any sense to me, right? They can use those points for describing something else as well. So what I'm trying to say is, if you don't have anything else to write, then okay, I mean, you can definitely go ahead and write two or three more points on that particular thing. But if you have something additional, then don't let that out. Try to capture as many flavor of your personality as you can, and that is the key message behind this EC explanation I gave earlier. Moving on, I have a question. I want to know which tool should I use to make this one page CV. Hmm. So very honestly, I used to make my CV on Microsoft Word, and that used to work wonderfully for me, right? And I have known people who make it on LaTeX as well, right? But generally, I think you can make your CV. I mean, back then I used to make my CVs on Word format and then kind of get some inputs from VMock, which used to give some free trials as well, right? So Microsoft Word is a very good tool from that sense. You can tabulate it in the manner I have shown in this video, right? And you can get started with that. It's very easy and kind of very hands-on. Who should I go for CV review? Okay. So for CV reviews, what I would recommend is that once CV review is a very long drawn process, to be very honest, and it's advisable that you get your CV reviewed from people from different sectors, or I mean whatever places you're kind of targeting, right? So maybe you can go for some alums who can, assist you with that, assist you with your CV review. Some of your seniors whom you have known. Otherwise, I mean, CV review is something which Prep Leaf is also doing. You can take a look at that as well. If that fancies you, should definitely go for that, right? So in terms of CV review, you should try. I mean, from the sense of giving the science behind it, what I'll recommend is you should try to get your CVs reviewed from the person who is pretty much at a at an experienced level, and they should have the capability to take a very third person perspective on your CV. So this should not be someone who you have directly worked with, and he kind of understands the context behind it, right? So maybe go for a senior with whom you have worked on one activity. Try to get his review on other fronts of your CV. That okay, is it making sense? How is it looking? Also, within your campus, whoever your friend circle is, between whom you are preparing, you can get ideas by discussing within yourself, right? And CV review is a very critical point. And once your CV is formulated, you should definitely get thorough amount of CV reviews on your profile to ensure that your CV is very well tuned and very fine tuned to the nth level. Next question. Is it good to mention MOCs in the CV for a particular job profile? Well, it depends. I mean, as I've told you, right, that if your point is adding any extra flavor, and if it is kind of uh, capturing any point which is kind of delivering any value, or which is kind of differentiating you from the rest, then you should definitely put it, right? Next, the main problem is framing sentences correctly. How to solve this? To be very honest, by practice, you have to make like 10, 15, 20 versions of your CV. You will have to go through all those iterations. It will be very repetitive in nature, it will be very time consuming in nature, but you have to spend a good amount of time for this. And in terms of framing sentences correctly, it definitely helps if you get it reviewed from someone who is pretty experienced in CV reviewing, who has that knack to help you with sentence formulation. And once you get that initial push, maybe you would be able to leverage that and work on developing it further, right? But the ground rule is that you'll have to spend quite quite a lot of effort and time in terms of capturing and in terms of fine tuning your CV. It's a hard process. It takes time. Can we add personal GitHub repo in resume? Yeah, you should, definitely you should. I mean, it's a good thing, and it kind of showcases that extra flavor of you, and the company can definitely understand and see that okay, this is something which differentiates you. Maybe they'll go check it out. So it's a good point. You should definitely use that. Is software skills essential for any company? Yeah, definitely. I mean, if it weren't, then people weren't doing it. So yeah, it is definitely necessary. And again, it depends how you position that from different jobs, from what kind of different jobs you're applying to, for what different roles are coming into place, and how are you leveraging your experience to showcase the same. So yeah, it's definitely important, and you should definitely keep it. Could you review CV? Yeah, I so as I told you, I mean, you can go check out on Preply, and I am taking a very thorough CV session with the people who are registered, and I will definitely review it post that. So I'm taking a session post that 1.5 hours of step by step CV making. So I'll definitely do that. You can reach out to me via Prepleaf portal. You can register over there, right? Um, I guess pretty much I have covered more or less all the questions. In case you have more questions, you can reach out to me over my LinkedIn, or you can reach out to Aman, whose details are there in the comment section, right? And based on this, we can connect further and take it ahead. In terms of courses, you can definitely go check out it at PrepLeaf portal, and a lot many courses are over there. If you find it useful, you can definitely enroll and leverage that. So I guess that's all for today, folks. Thanks a lot for your time. Lovely talking to you. Thank you. Bye bye.